Welcome to the Rhode Island Department of Education's What to Expect in FY25 training video. We will cover a review of new SFSP regulations that were made official after the USDA released a final rule on child nutrition program integrity in 2023. RIDE has updated our review policies and procedures in accordance with USDA's final rule. This training will cover the main points, but you can find the full policy document at any time in CNP Connect under Download Forms. This policy includes information of how RIDE determines our review cycle for each program year, how we select the number and types of sites to be reviewed for each sponsor, and the new meal validation that RIDE will be implementing during program reviews. This policy will define two new terms that will be important to know: operational problems and significant operational problems. Keep in mind that operational problems refer to sites, while significant operational problems is a sponsor-level definition. RIDE has defined operational problems as any site that has an uncorrected health and/or safety issue. Significant operational problems is when any sponsor upon review is found to have insufficient controls related to SFSP management, resulting in the use of any amount of SFSP funds on unallowable expenses, or has resulted in a disallowance amount that is equal to or greater than 20% of the total dollar value of their approved budget. Sponsors should be aware that RIDE has contracted Myers and Stauffer to complete both the on-site visits and paperwork reviews for FY25 SFSP. As a result of the new regulations, each sponsor will fall into one of the three categories shown on the slide. Your designation will determine certain portions of your application process. The first is new, non-SFA sponsor, or sponsors who were deemed to have significant operational problems in the prior program year. Any site offering a non-congregate meal service for the first time is considered new, even if it was previously considered a congregate meal service site. Next is experienced sponsors. These are any sponsors who do not participate in any of the other child nutrition programs, have not had significant operational problems, and participated in the SFSP in the prior program year. Finally, there are school food authorities, or SFAs, and CACFP sponsors. If you are a summer sponsor who also participates in either of these programs, you must be in good standing for all other child nutrition programs as of the date in which SFSP applications are opened. We will go over the definition of what it means to be in good standing later in this presentation. The designations discussed on the previous slide will have an impact on the management plan portion of the SFSP application. The rest of the standard SFSP application will be the same for your organization. Please note that when RIDE refers to a full management plan, we are referring to three elements: a financial viability assessment, completing the SFSP budget, and completing the section of the SFSP application titled Management Plan. All new sponsors and sponsors with significant operational problems will be required to complete all three items for your SFSP application to be approved. If you are a new sponsor operating a non-congregate meal service, you will also need to submit a policy statement that outlines how you will ensure that only meal and/or snack per eligible participant is distributed. Experienced sponsors must complete a full management plan at least once every 3 years. Beginning with FY24, any experienced sponsor that is on cycle for review will be required to complete a full management plan, which will include a financial viability assessment as part of the application process. For experienced sponsors who are not on cycle for review, a financial viability assessment will not be required. Non-review years will typically require a simplified management plan. However, RIDE will not utilize a simplified management plan until CNP Connect is updated. This means that the management plan section in the current SFSP application will need to be completed this year. All experienced sponsors, regardless of whether you are on review or not, will have to submit a SFSP budget each year. SFAs and CACFP sponsors who are in good standing will not need to complete a full management plan. SFAs in good standing will not need a financial viability assessment or need to submit a budget. For FY25, you will need to complete the management plan section in the SFSP application. However, once the C&P Connect system is updated, you will only need to submit a simplified management plan. Once the updates are in place, RIDE will notify you to let you know of the change in processes. CACFP sponsors in good standing will be required to submit an SFSP budget every year. Similar to SFAs, you will be required to complete the management section in the SFSP application until C&P Connect has been updated appropriately. Within the SFSP, you will now begin to hear the phrase "in good standing." In good standing is used when referring to a sponsor who meets all of the following criteria: meets its program responsibilities, is current with its financial obligations, and has fully implemented all corrective action within the required period. If one or more of these items are not met, then a sponsor is considered to be not in good standing. Please note that RIDE considers full implementation of corrective action to mean that the corrective action plan is approved by our office, not just submitted. Any sponsor who is not in good standing by the time applications are opened will need to complete the SFSP application under the designation of a sponsor with significant operational problems. This chart is intended to show a simplified version of the management plan requirements for each designation of sponsor. As previously mentioned, sponsors not in good standing will be following the management plan requirements of sponsors with significant operational problems. RIDE has established a new policy and procedure for establishing site caps that will be followed during this fiscal year application process. As a reminder, a site cap is set by RIDE to determine the maximum number of meals that can be claimed per day. The policy outlines how RIDE will determine site caps as well as the process sponsors will need to follow in order to adjust a site cap. Sponsors should be sure that an accurate average daily participation or ADP number is entered into each site application. Another new definition amidst the changes for the SFSP is that of the site supervisor, to help more clearly define their responsibilities. Overall, the site supervisor is the individual who has been trained by the sponsor and is responsible for all administrative and management activities at the site. This can include a number of things, including the responsibilities listed on this slide and more. When filling out or updating the site application, a different individual must be listed as the site supervisor for each site. RIDE will not approve sites that have the same individual listed for multiple sites. Time and effort record keeping will be evaluated as part of program reviews for any sponsor that charges labor against the SFSP. Ensure you keep detailed payroll records, time and attendance, and time and effort sheets. RIDE has developed a policy outlining the requirements for sponsors as well as a template for time and attendance and time and effort tracking. RIDE has been approved for 2 waivers this summer, the first being the SFSP heat waiver to be used in times of excessive heat. This waiver would allow sponsors who are in good standing that operate an outdoor site without a temperature-controlled alternative site to adjust one or more aspects of their meal service. Sponsors can elect to operate the site with non-congregate meal service, allow for parent or guardian pickup, and/or adjusting meal service times. However, this waiver can only be used on days when the National Weather Service has issued one of the following for the site location: heat advisory, excessive heat warning, or excessive heat watch. Additionally, sponsors must also adhere to several implementation guidelines to be approved for use of this waiver. Outlined on this slide are the additional minimum requirements that must be met for sponsors to be approved for use for any portion of the excessive heat waiver. RIDE may ask for additional information prior to approving sponsors for use of these waivers. The second waiver RIDE is approved for this summer is the SFSP Air Quality Waiver. This waiver would allow sponsors in good standing that operate an outdoor site with no alternative indoor site to adjust one or more aspects of their meal service. Sponsors can elect to operate the site with non-congregate meal service, allow for parent or guardian pickup, and/or adjust meal service times. However, this waiver can only be used on days when the air is considered unhealthy or hazardous as defined by the EPA and CDC. To determine the air quality of your site, you can go to the link listed on this slide, enter the zip code, and view that status. Any location that flagged as purple or higher may use this waiver. Additionally, sponsors must also adhere to several implementation guidelines to be approved for use of this waiver. Outlined on this slide are the additional minimum requirements that must be met in order for sponsors to be approved for use for any portion of the air quality waiver. RIDE may ask for additional information prior to approving sponsors for use of these waivers. RIDE has translated materials and forms that are relevant to frontline staff, such as meal count forms and instructions, an updated civil rights training video, and summer delivery slip guidance. All translated materials provided by RIDE will be available in CNP Connect under Download Forms. This concludes RIDE's What to Expect in FY25 training video. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and contact us if you have any questions.